What is up, everybody? Everyday Angler here. Until I get a third camera, or I guess second camera set up in here, I'm gonna be crouched down talking to the camera like this. So I know a lot of people have enjoyed my fast tie videos, and I enjoy making them. It's something quick and kind of easy I can edit, but I really want to get into doing more, not instructional, because I'm not gonna show people like exactly how to tie them. I'm just kind of expecting people to already know how to put thread on a hook and all that stuff. We're gonna get more detailed into like why I'm tying things certain ways, and after doing that video with Adam, or Tennessee River Smallmouth, I've kind of like, okay, people actually enjoy these videos, so we're gonna get nerdy on here. I'm gonna speed up. If I'm like palmering something, I'm just gonna speed that up. I'm not gonna explain how to palmer stuff or how to put thread on a hook pretty much, or dubbing loops or anything like that. There's plenty of videos out there that'll show you how to do it. So lately I've been kind of obsessed with these Gunner Brammer hooks. I've had them sitting at my desk for a while. These are the Ahrex PR, this probably stands for Predator, PR378 GB, which I believe is Gunner Brammer Swimbait hooks. And he does a lot of crazy stuff with them and builds like these big mono bodies out. And I've done a couple like that, but I've been fishing them for bass mostly, because when I went out fishing with John from Creek Fishing Adventures, just watching how the spinning world is like literally casting spinner baits right into log jams and just pulling them right out, no problem, and like producing fish in that way. I feel like in the bodies of water, there's a time and place for everything. I'm not going to use one of these hooks in like open water, Tennessee River type stuff, you know. But when you're fishing those smaller rivers, creeks with a lot of log jams and stuff like that, a lot of pocket water, you're almost like wasting your time not slamming the bank. If they're there, obviously, this is all like, well, that's what fishing is though. Pretty much what had happened is John told me, like, dude, we're gonna see if they're on the bank. So we did, and they were on the bank. And then he was like, if you're not getting your fly to smack that bank and fall in the water, don't even worry, like, recast. And he was actually right, which is not surprising. He catches a ton of fish. So after that day, which I did end up picking the spinning rod and catching fish on spinner baits with his setup, I came back home and I was like, I need to tie a fly that, you know, I'm not going to tie like a spinner bait fly, but I needed something that I could slam into the log jams, pull it out, made a lot of noise. And that's when I got into these hooks. When I first started tying with them, I really didn't believe that they were as weedless as they are, but it's incredible like how little material you really have to get over that hook point to make it weedless. So just for example, this is like a bucktail mixed with EP fiber, just a chartreuse bait fish, got a rattle on the bend. And it's caught me fish. It's 2/0. It's caught, I mean, I've had rock bass take it, and obviously baby bass will take it, and it's weedless, like incredibly. You wouldn't believe what this thing will get pulled out of. Now, I'm talking like log jams. You don't want to throw this like at grass. And there's a red one I tied, and these two are as simple as just doing Zonker strips over that hook point, and they fall back like that. Rattles and everything. And this bad boy is the one that I caught my PB spot on in North Georgia. I wish my camera wouldn't know that I don't want my face focused in on. Yeah, you can see this guy's pretty destroyed. I still have my loop in there, but Zonker has always been one of my favorite materials, just how it moves in the water as a tail or as anything really. It pulsates like marabou. It's like a strip of marabou. And today we're going to tie a fly that I've come to just keep tying and keep tying, because this fly is literally destroyed. I'm probably going to take a razor to it. The Zonker strip slit is like this big. The Zonker falls out after casting. It kind of stays like this now, you know. So I've come to find a way to make the Zonker tail, which is all the action you need. I mean, it's killer action, to make it last a lot longer. So that's the fly that we're gonna tie today. Most of the time when I'm fishing with these hooks, I'm putting rattles down here. And I actually did do like a monobody extended fly for bass on the 2/0. I gave it like a little Buford head and just pushed it back with resin and put eyes on it. And yes, this bucktail is trimmed, which you're never supposed to do, but it was really tricky to like get a proper taper out of it, and I hated how it looked, and I just trimmed it, and I'm gonna fish it and it'll catch me fish. And that's even when I put a blade on it. So this is a bad boy, and this is mono. Like, you can see that hook right there. This is a badass fly. So anyways, I'm done talking, but I hope you like it. I know I just talked for like 5 minutes. That's what these videos are gonna be about. I know they probably won't get as many views, but I've always wanted to do videos like this, and obviously I'm not really here talking to anybody, but you guys can comment and I'll read the comments of like, oh, you should do this instead of that, and this would be better, and stuff like that. So I know some of you out there are watching this and will enjoy it. Anyways, let's get to tying this fly. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a spawn fly fish. This is just like the same Game Changer shanks, except Spawn makes them in a lot of different sizes and they're a little cheaper. So I really like Spawn products. This is the 9mm. And you can use a 10 if that's what you have to do like your finesse changer. It's not gonna make a difference. I just use these 9s for really small stuff, and all I need here is like a shank. Like if I didn't have this, I'd just grab like my cheapest mustad hook and take my nippers to it and cut it. What I'm doing is I'm actually bending it open right now. So we're gonna treat that like if it was a hook, like the bend of the hook, and I'm just gonna put my vise right there. Okay. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab 2 mono straights. This is 30-pound saltwater mono that I've turned into mono straights. You've probably heard about it before, but if you haven't, I'm just gonna put a link to Brammer's video up here somewhere, maybe over there. If not, it'll be in the description. Really easy to do, and definitely worth your time. So this is just 2 pieces of 30-pound, really thick stuff. And next I'm gonna grab my mono, which is not in a bobbin right now. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this is uni thread mono. 0.004. This is super thin stuff. I'm just gonna start some thread down. And I'm gonna take my 2 pieces of the mono straights, and sometimes, yeah, I'm gonna do one at a time. I'll just lay it right on top. And grab my other one. Okay, and we're not worried about covering the eye of this or anything, because we're not actually connecting this to anything. This is never gonna be like grabbed by the fish and pulled on. So, but I am gonna super glue it just cause. This is like the super thin Loctite, kind of the opposite of the gel. And this, I mean, it's never gonna come apart. Especially there's not gonna be anything pulling on this, like I said. So, okay. I'm just gonna throw like a quick half hitch in there. Super glue is gonna weld this thing. We're not worried about doing a bunch of whip finishes on it. Okay, so that's it for that. Next we're gonna grab, so we're pretty much done with the rigging on that. Next we're gonna grab Magnum rabbit strips in black. I can't promise you it's gonna work in any other color. I'm gonna grab a whole piece. It's just a lot easier than ending up with short pieces and stuff. And on a fly like this, you can cut, you know, the little triangle taper, which I'll do. But honestly, I don't think it's gonna make too much of a difference. So we're gonna leave ourselves like way more zonker than we know that we need. Well, actually, let me start my thread again first. I should have never cut it. I mean, and if you're worried about wasting Zonker, then you can get your hook. I'm tying this on a 2/0, by the way, and kind of measure where you want this thing to be. So right here. I just don't want to pre-cut this and then it's too short, because then it's freaking not good. Split the hairs. This is kind of the type of stuff I was talking about just skipping over, so y'all should know how to put a zonker down. Okay, so that's literally, we're gonna set this aside now. I'm gonna take this out of the vise, and that little bend that I was using to hold the shank in the vise is gonna get snipped. Close your eyes before you do that. That will never be seen again. So this is the rig right here. Looks like just plain old zonker, but we've got a little shank and mono straights on it. Now let's get our hook in the vise. I've already pre-rattled this one up. I do them just like Brammer does. With the same mono straight, I lay a mono straight on either side of the shank. That way it forms like a kind of like a flatter platform for this rattle to lay on. I put the rattle on, and I do a little bit extra because I like to use plastic rattles, not glass. Just because I think they're a little sturdier, but this rattle is already really protected on the inside of this hook. And I actually super glue it, and then I come in with some UV thick, some loon, and I cover the whole thing in it, which kind of it quiets down the rattle a bit, but it protects this thing from not getting cracked. And what you really don't want is getting a small crack and getting water in the rattle, because then your rattles really are like cut down to like 80% sound. Anyways, now we're gonna use some Vivus 6/0. This one's been heavily used, as you can see. This is Vivus 6/0 in black. Anyways, what we're gonna do is, this is Vivus and 6/0. And I'm just gonna start some thread at the very back of the shank that we're actually gonna tie on, and just leave it right there. I'm gonna come in with some and now I'm gonna come in with some 0.025 lead wire, lead free lead. And I am literally gonna do this whole shank. The first few I tied, I did not do this. And then I did do it, and I really didn't think it was gonna make much of a difference, but it does. And I'll explain that in a little bit here. I mean, if you can find a way to rig a bead on here, if you can like get a tungsten bead all the way from back here all the way over here, or like a brass bead, then I'd do it. It'd be a lot easier. This hook is gonna want to ride like this at all times, just because there's so much weight back here, and this hook is naturally gonna want to ride hook point up. So unless you put like counter floating heavy deer hair foam tail or something up here to straighten this thing out, you got to put weight back here. Which Zonker does float a bit, but not enough to really make a difference. And like I said, this fly is like throw it in the log jam and strip. If nothing takes this thing after 3 strips, and just pick it back up and hit the next piece of structure in the water. This is like full reaction. It's like a full reaction bait, so you don't really want a fish to come up and, is this thing swimming crooked or something, you know? Okay, so I've secured all the lead wraps, and I'm gonna come in with some thin glue again. I use a ton of glue on these, on everything really, just because you do spend so much time tying it, and it's pretty much like weedless, and you're not gonna like, this fly is gonna last forever as long as you super glue it. Okay, now here's the tail that we had rigged up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line this up kind of where that shank is right before the bend, if you can see that. So like right here. And of course this is depending on like how long you want your tail, but we can always snip it too. So I'm gonna come in and poke a hole in my zonker right here. I can lift the rest of my zonker up. And I'm gonna tie my mono rig down. You just want to make sure that the two pieces of mono, you don't want them pulling. You don't want them pulling your zonker this way and causing this to like hollow out. You want a little bit of slack in there. This is not a weed guard. This hook is already weedless. So this is for when spots and smallies and even largemouth or anything that has like a little bit of teeth don't just destroy this fly the first time they take it. So I'm like my thread is not happy with me. All I'm doing is I'm reinforcing the zonker strip. And like I said, this mono is never going to be pulled on. Well, I guess it could be, but there's not really going to be any real pressure on it. The real pressure is all on the hook. So I'm just going to finish wrapping this up. And I'm going to grab my zonker, flip it the right way up. And I'm going to tie it in. So there's our tail. So we did all that to get a tail down. Let me flip it. Well, you're not going to be able to see it anymore, but yeah, you will. My shank is right here, really close to the hook point. And like I said, this is not, the mono shank that we made is not a weed guard. It just helps reinforce this zonker. So when something destroys this thing, your zonker just doesn't go to crap. And I always like leaving the zonker strip a little longer because you can always cut it, but you can't add to it. And the last thing, well not the last thing, but one thing that we're going to do too is I've bought these weed guards for like jigs, for like crappie jigs. I got them at Bass Pro Shop. It's just like a little piece of like rubber something. And I just use them. I've tried to use the sink stoppers before, like that cat fishermen use, and they just weren't tough enough to go on this hook because of the barb. You can find anything. I just got that little piece of rubber and I put it right there before the bend. That's going to stop my zonker from coming over on itself. I have not lost this because of a fish yet, but I've only had a rock bass take one that I've put this on. And even when you do lose it, you can just put another one back on. It's not like we're gluing this thing on there or anything. So boom, there's the majority of the fly. So the tricky part, when you're not building like a mono body, like on this guy, is getting a body to even look kind of tapered with just this shank. And on the few little zonker ones I did, I kind of managed to do that with Senyo's laser dub. But you still have this long, and that's fine. Like this zonker moves like crazy. You see this one has kind of a Senyo's with a brush under it. This fly, we're gonna do something off the riff right now. I'm gonna use this brush that I've had sitting in my drawer for the longest. This is actually from a local company, and I'll put their name down right here. And the link to their website will be in the description below. This is actually a brush for like salmon and steelhead flies, tube flies I guess, but it's just gonna work out perfect with this, and it's gonna be way easier. So whatever brush, if you make your own or if you like any specific brush, you can almost taper it out like a changer. I'm not gonna go that far though. I'm just gonna throw this thing on there and it's gonna look fine. So let me tie my wire down. If you have some UV thin or anything, this is the time to finish the fly. Well, actually, before we get everything all sticky, I'm gonna get my toothbrush and kind of brush this hair out. And this is also why I like pre-rigging the rattles, because if not, you're gonna have a bunch of craft fur just stick to the bottom of this hook. And once this thing is covered up, it actually came out pretty perfect. That's badass. Hook point. Fluff it back up. And obviously, the fluff that I'm doing, that's what's gonna happen in the water. I like this brush a lot. Let me finish it with some liquid glue. That's not gonna go anywhere. And we'll put some eyes on this sucker because it's a YouTube video. Now the way I finished the head, I've actually changed that up a bit. I've come in with a Fabric Fusion. It's a fabric glue. It's waterproof, you know, good for like, or the bottle says it's good for like certain amount of washers. That's way too much washes. Anyways, the deer hair guy, Ed, I believe, is the one that put me onto this stuff, and it really is just like a UV flex when it finishes, but in my opinion a lot tougher. The only thing is you're not going to be able to take a UV light and finish it like immediately, which I don't like to just fish my stuff right after I hit it with the UV light anyways, but you're going to want to let this sit for at least a day or two. But it's tough, like it is tough. And just like if you were doing a head, like a laser dub head or something with UV, just like that. I just make sure that I keep it round because I don't want a flat, narrow head on it. I want a round head on it. This stuff's killer. It's almost like silicone, almost. I actually bought a bottle of silicone to try out on a couple of flies. But I'm coating the head and the eyes with it and all that, just like if I was doing it with UV resin. The eyes are in place with the super glue, so they're not going to go anywhere, and I'm just giving it a good coat of this. It's like a weedless jerk fly, like a Brammer's jerk fly, weedless. And this brush obviously makes everything so much easier instead of laying materials over this thing. So I'll take a better look at this thing, take it out of the vise, and we can talk a little bit before I let you go. So here is the fly. Pretty big. But I've been finding that when bass are hungry, they'll eat something this size easily. Let me put my lens back a bit. Rattle. That Zonker tail is gonna go crazy. It does not really foul because of that mono, and if it ever comes around this way, it might do this number every once in a while, come out from behind the hook, but that ain't nothing to worry about because we got this tube head on it. It's just a badass fly, and relatively easy if you pre-rig that 2/0 swim bait hook, and you can see how much bigger it is than, well, actually it's not that much bigger, it's just more profile. So I'm gonna hang this up to dry, and you'll probably see it in a video soon. There it is, weedless Zonker, leech, bait fish, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of confidence in this color and just a big Zonker tail because I've been catching fish on them. So thank you for watching, everybody. Leave in the comments if you like this style video, if you'd still want me to do like the fast tie style videos, and I want to bring other content. I've got some other content planned with like products and stuff like that where I do reviews. So thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys on another episode of The Everyday Angler.